So, how did you get here? You didn't wake up one morning and say, "You know what sounds fun? Piracy." No, you're here because something went terribly wrong. Probably several somethings in rapid succession. Maybe you were poor, maybe you were drunk, maybe you owed someone money and forgot how persuasive debt collectors with clubs can be. Regardless, your life on land ended with a choice between starving in an alley or sleeping under a cannon on a boat that leaks in 4 directions. For some, piracy was a last resort. For others, it was the only option that didn't involve a hangman's noose or indentured servitude. You may have been a failed farmer, a runaway apprentice, or just someone too mouthy in the wrong tavern. Maybe you were in the Navy, emphasis on were, before you realised that the only thing worse than being flogged for stealing a biscuit is being flogged for stealing a biscuit, and then not getting to keep the biscuit. But let's be honest, you probably didn't even choose piracy. You were press-ganged, kidnapped, abducted, shanghaied. One moment you're leaning over a barrel at the dock, squinting into your 3rd cup of vinegar wine, and the next, sack over your head, fist to the ribs, and boom. You're waking up at sea, tied to a mast, someone peeing over the railing next to you, and a very large man with 2 teeth explaining that you're crew now. And before you say, "Why didn't people fight back?" let me gently remind you, most of the people dragged onto pirate ships were already malnourished, sick or broke. Fighting back required calories. You haven't had those in weeks. The average citizen couldn't afford a shoe, let alone a sword. Besides, resistance was often met with a hearty laugh and a casual knife to the thigh. Then again, maybe you were technically recruited. Pirates sometimes gave options. You're on a captured merchant ship, terrified, surrounded by yelling, and a man with a blood-stained sash asks if you want to join up or go for a swim with rocks in your pockets. Sure, that's a choice. Kind of like being offered 2 flavours of execution. Some people did join willingly, not many, but some. Ex-sailors sick of low pay and high lashes. Prisoners promised freedom in exchange for service. Desperate souls who heard tales of gold and glory and thought, how bad could it be? Those people didn't last, not because they were weak, but because they had hope. Hope is a liability on a pirate ship. It makes you hesitate. It makes you dream. And dreaming gets you knifed during hammock rotation. You may have told yourself, "At least I'm free now. I'm not under the king's boot. I answer to no man." How quaint. You now answer to the captain, a man whose leadership style could be described as volcanic with a head injury. He decides when you eat, when you sleep, and whether your punishment involves rope, sharks, or just public humiliation, and something vaguely referred to as the bucket. Piracy is often described as democratic. That's cute. Yes, some ships technically voted on things, especially which ship to attack next, or who gets the bigger share of the rat meat. But don't mistake mob rule for freedom. You're free to voice your opinion, once, loudly, and then you're free to be beaten with a belaying pin until you forget how to spell your own name. The truth is you didn't end up here because you were brave, or noble, or born under a cursed moon. You're here because you were expendable. The world chewed you up, and this ship was the last thing that didn't immediately spit you back out. You're not Jack Sparrow. You're not even Jack Sparrow's cousin's roommate's dog. You're just another name on a water-stained ledger of bodies. And now you're aboard. No land in sight. No rescue coming. No 5 easy steps to escape a pirate ship pamphlet tucked in your waistband. Just you, the sea, and 40 to 60 other unfortunate souls pretending this is better than the alternative. Spoiler, it's not. So, you've been abducted, conscripted, or just thoroughly conned. You're stuck on a ship that smells like wet rope and unwashed ambition, and you're still clinging to the vague hope that maybe, just maybe, the people around you are at least halfway decent. Let's ruin that hope together. Meet the crew, starting with old Nate. He's called that because he's 35 and looks 80. His skin has the texture of sun-dried parchment, and his beard appears to have partially fossilized. He's survived shipwrecks, storms, at least 2 mutinies, and a mysterious incident involving a priest, a cannon, and a wheel of cheese. He's not wise, he's just too stubborn to die, and he smells like someone tried to tan leather using seawater and despair. Next is Whistler. Nobody knows his real name. He just whistles, constantly. Cheerful melodies, haunting dirges, the occasional off-key hymn that might be a warning. He sharpens knives while doing it. Not his own knives, other people's. Usually while maintaining disturbingly direct eye contact. He hasn't blinked since Tuesday. Your hammock is next to Scraps. He's called that because he eats them. Mouldy biscuits, discarded boot soles, and once a piece of sailcloth he mistook for a pancake. He has scurvy, ringworm, and the unsettling ability to sleep anywhere, including upside down. He snores like a dying walrus and hums in his sleep. He's missing 2 fingers and doesn't remember why. Then there's half-eared Jim. Lost one ear in a bar fight, allegedly. Lost the other half of his mind somewhere off the coast of Antigua. He mutters constantly, mostly threats against seagulls, and something he calls the salt demon. He believes the ship is haunted, and he's not wrong. He might be the haunting. Bloody Mary is the gunner's mate. She has the build of a whiskey barrel and the voice of someone who gargled gravel. Tattoos cover every inch of visible skin, including one that reads, "Don't ask," across her knuckles. She once bit a man during a hammock dispute and has never apologised. She holds the crew arm wrestling record, as well as the record for most threats made before breakfast. Then we have Guts. That's not his real name. It's what he yelled when he tried to intimidate a boarding party and forgot the rest of his sentence. He hasn't lived it down. His real talent is vomiting with incredible accuracy during storms, often into other people's boots. He keeps a pet rat named Reginald, which he talks to like a therapist. Reginald is the most stable member of the crew. Cobbler used to be a shoemaker. He mentions this constantly, despite having no shoes. He's tried to repair 3 pairs of boots using tar and regret, and each attempt has ended in catastrophic blisters. He still insists he's craftsman class. Nobody is sure if he actually worked in a cobbler's shop or just loitered near one. French Tom is not French, not even a little. He's from Leeds, but he once said bonjour during a hangover, and it stuck. He's the navigator, or at least he was until the incident with the compass, the goat, and the sudden detour into a sandbar. Now he mostly tells stories about whales and accuses the stars of lying. Mute Sam is not mute. He just doesn't like people. He communicates via grunts, aggressive pointing, and the occasional note scrawled in charcoal on a bit of sailcloth. He's unnervingly efficient at tying knots and deeply enjoys gutting fish. Probably too much. Little Billy is 6 feet tall and built like a siege tower. The nickname is either ironic or a cruel joke from a captain with a death wish. He doesn't speak often, but when he does, it's usually about fire. No one asks questions. Billy gets a wide berth, especially near lanterns. Then there's Smokey, who constantly smells like burning rope, despite nobody ever seeing him near fire. He once claimed to be a cook. Then he served something that made 4 men hallucinate, and 1 man permanently believe he's married to the mast. He now stirs things in a pot no one's allowed to look into. Patch wears an eye patch, but not because he's missing an eye. He just likes the look. Sometimes he switches it from left to right mid-conversation, depending on the lighting. It's deeply unsettling. He also carries 3 flintlocks, and doesn't trust any of them, referring to them as the lads and blaming them for his frequent outbursts. And finally the captain, but we'll talk about him later. For now, just know that he's watching. Always watching, often from odd places, like the crow's nest at 3 a.m, whispering to the moon. Together, these misfits, degenerates, and semi-sentient warning signs form the backbone of your new life. They're violent, unstable, and deeply, profoundly unwell. And they are now your closest companions. Trust is rare. Loyalty is conditional. Everyone's armed, Everyone's tired, and everyone's been stabbed at least once, emotionally or otherwise. But for all their madness, these people are survivors. They've outlived hurricanes, cannonballs, venereal disease, and at least one Kraken rumour. They might smell like fermented despair and scream in their sleep, but they know how to sail, how to fight, how to live. Barely. Welcome aboard. This is your home now. It has sails. It floats, most of the time. Technically, it qualifies as a ship. Emotionally, it's a damp wooden coffin that groans louder than the crew. She's got a name, probably something intimidating like the Revenge or the Black Vengeance. Pirates love names that sound like they've already killed someone. She wasn't built for comfort. She wasn't even built well. This vessel is likely a stolen merchant ship, hastily converted into a pirate vessel by removing everything useful and replacing it with anxiety. The floorboards creak when nobody's moving. The hull leaks, constantly. Not dramatically, just enough to make everything damp. Your clothes, your food, your soul. The deck is a minefield of loose nails, rope coils, and the occasional chicken that no one remembers bringing aboard. It's also slick. Always slick. With seawater, blood, rum, or something that looks like it used to be stew. You don't walk across it so much as shuffle like a haunted floor mop, praying you don't slip and land face first on a rusty spike. Below deck things get worse. The ceiling is low enough to humble your posture permanently. The air is thick with mildew, sweat, and old wood rot. There's a smell. Not one you can describe. It's more of a presence, like something crawled into the wall and died, then changed its mind halfway through and decided to haunt the place instead. Your living space? It's called the hold. You share it with rats, weevils, and 30 to 40 equally miserable human beings. There's no privacy, not even a curtain. Just hammocks swinging so close together that if your neighbour rolls over, you both wake up confused and bruised. There's no mattress, no pillow, no personal shelf for your diary and scented candles, just a sling of canvas suspended by rope and trust issues. You're encouraged not to sleep on your back. Not because it's bad for you, but because the dripping ceiling will baptise your face every 10 minutes with condensation that might just be swept from the deck above. Storage? That's just a word for put it wherever it won't immediately rot or catch fire. Gunpowder barrels live next to crates of salted meat. Lanterns hang near flammable tar. The rum is stored in 3 different locations because the last guy who kept it all in one place is still being used as an example. The latrine is a plank at the back of the ship. With a hole in it, you hang your bare bottom over the ocean and hope for calm seas and forgiveness. Wipe with a rag. Rinse in salt water. Repeat until you stop caring. Privacy? None. Judgment? Constant. The seagulls have seen things. The galley's a pitiful excuse for a kitchen. A firebox bolted to the floor, tended by a cook with a nervous tick, and no remaining taste buds. Most meals are prepared with one spice. Unidentifiable. If it smells edible and doesn't move, it's dinner. If it moves, it's tomorrow's dinner. Navigation equipment is sparse. There might be a compass, a cracked spyglass, and a chart that predates the invention of coastlines. You don't know where you are. The captain probably doesn't either, but he says he does, and that's what counts until you hit land or another ship. Every part of the vessel requires constant repair. Ropes fray, sails tear, the mast cracks, wood warps, nails rust. It's like living inside a large, angry wooden toddler that's always on the verge of a tantrum. Maintenance is non-stop, and by maintenance we mean yelling at things and hitting them with hammers until they stop leaking. Then there's the sound. The creaking never stops. The groaning, the flapping sails, the snap of ropes under tension, all layered over the ocean's eternal sloshing. It's like being trapped inside a giant, wet musical instrument played by Poseidon's drunk nephew. You'll learn to sleep through it eventually. Or not. And the ship is always moving. Not just the obvious rolling and pitching. No, this is a full-body experience. It sways, it shudders, it jolts without warning. You will develop sea legs. You will also develop sea nausea, sea headaches, and the ability to vomit into a bucket without missing a beat. This ship is your world now. You'll live on it, bleed on it, maybe die on it. It is not majestic. It is not romantic. It is not the stuff of ballads. It is an arthritic wooden death trap, held together with rope, salt, and bad decisions. But for a pirate, it's everything. So it's the end of a long day. You've hauled ropes, eaten something that may have been soup in a former life, and narrowly avoided being stabbed by a man arguing with his shadow. You're exhausted, soaked to the bone, and your back feels like it was used as a gangplank. Naturally, you look forward to sleep. That's adorable. Your bed is a hammock, not the breezy, Instagram-worthy kind strung between two palm trees with a daiquiri in hand. No, this is a narrow, scratchy strip of canvas, suspended in a part of the ship, so cramped it technically qualifies as a closet. If you roll too far to one side, you'll tumble onto your bunkmate, or worse, the floor, which is currently wet with something. You don't have your own space. Privacy doesn't exist here. You sleep in a room packed with dozens of other men, strung up like drying laundry, swinging gently in the ship's ceaseless rhythm. Sometimes the hammocks sway in unison, like a synchronized ballet performed by meat sacks. Other times, they sway out of sync, and someone's nose meets someone else's elbow. Again. Breathing is competitive. The air down here is thick, with body odor, mildew, and a hint of rat droppings. If someone farts, and they will, the scent just kind of hovers, trapped by the low ceiling and your dwindling will to live. It's a hot, damp blanket of humanity's worst emissions. There's no lighting, just darkness, or maybe the faint flicker of a lantern someone's risked setting up in defiance of both safety regulations and common sense. That faint glow reveals shapes, shadows, and the knowledge that one of your crewmates is staring directly at you while chewing something. You do not want to know what. Noise is constant. Snoring is the default setting. Some men mumble in their sleep, others scream. Some sleep with one eye open. One man, you're fairly certain, is composing sea shanties in his dreams and moaning the chorus. You'll learn to sleep through it, or you'll cry quietly into your hammock until unconsciousness takes pity on you. Bedding, that's optimistic. You get your hammock, maybe a blanket if it hasn't been used as a mop yet, maybe a lumpy pillow fashioned from spare rope. If you're cold, you shiver. If you're hot, you sweat. If you're both, congratulations, you've developed pirate fever. Don't worry, that's only fatal sometimes. Clothing is your pajamas, also your work clothes, also your funeral attire if things go poorly. There's no laundry service, no fresh linens, just salt, grime, and the vague hope that one day the mildew in your shirt will achieve sentience and walk off on its own. You are always damp. The ceiling drips, the walls sweat, the boards beneath your hammock squelch in a way that suggests a small ecosystem is forming. You've stopped asking what's wet and started hoping it's just water. That's your nightly optimism. Pests? Yes. The hammock area is their playground. Lice, fleas, rats, spiders, things that shouldn't exist but do. You might wake up with bite marks or with something small and judgmental making eye contact with you from inside your boot. If you scream, no one reacts. That's just Tuesday. On particularly rough nights, the ship rocks violently, and hammocks swing like pendulums. You'll hear bodies colliding mid-air. A man might be flung from his sling and land with a thud and a groan. Nobody helps. Helping means getting up, and nobody gets up unless there's fire, or a ghost. Some ships have sleeping shifts. Too many men, not enough hammocks. So you rotate, 4 hours here, 4 hours there. If someone doesn't wake up when it's your turn, you drag them out. Gently, if they're your friend. Violently, if they snore like a foghorn. If you're lucky, you dream of land. If you're realistic, you dream of falling, rats, or your captain turning into a squid and demanding you swab the ocean. Sleep is not restful here. It's damage control. You wake up just a little more broken than the day before. But hey, you're not alone. Misery loves company, and you're surrounded by snoring, scratching, half-dead company. Welcome to pirate rest. May your sleep be brief, and your hammock knots hold. So, you've survived another day at sea. You've hauled rigging, dodged a fistfight over a stolen spoon, and successfully avoided falling off the latrine plank during high tide. Congratulations. You've earned a meal. You will regret this. Pirate cuisine isn't really cuisine. It's more of an endurance test. The ship doesn't have a chef. It has a cook, who may or may not have once boiled boots for soup. Ingredients are limited to whatever doesn't rot immediately. Spoiler, everything rots immediately. Let's start with hardtack. It's your bread substitute. Picture a cracker made of flour, water, salt and heartbreak, then baked until it could stop a musket ball. If you're lucky, it's just hard. If you're unlucky, it's alive. Weevils love hardtack. You'll learn to tap it on the table to see if anything crawls out. If it does, you flick the bug off and eat it anyway. Extra protein. Next up, salt pork. This is not the crispy, bacon-esque delight of your fantasies. It's a grey, rubbery block of pig, preserved in enough salt to give a horse cardiac arrest. You'll boil it. You'll chew it. It will fight you the entire time. By week 2, you'll start having nightmares about it chasing you. Vegetables? That's adorable. If there are any, they're long dead. Potatoes sprout into new life forms. Onions go soft and start leaking. If someone gets an apple, it's either a miracle or a trap. Scurvy isn't just a threat, it's an inevitability. Gums swell, teeth loosen. Eventually, you're gumming your salt pork like a sad old sea turtle. Water, you ask? Technically, yes, but it's stored in barrels. Barrels that used to hold fish, wine, vinegar, or some mysterious fluid the crew refuses to discuss. By the time you drink it, it's warm, cloudy, and tastes like someone washed socks in it. Which, in fairness, they probably did. To make the water slightly less horrifying, you mix it with rum. Not good rum, pirate rum, the kind that burns your throat in your dreams. You'll drink it to kill the taste, the bacteria, and your short-term memory. Dehydration is constant. You're always either too thirsty or too drunk to care. The cook occasionally makes stew. This is a generous term. It's mostly a boiling slurry of meat scraps, salted fat, biscuit crumbs, and something unidentifiable that may have once been part of a fish. If it has bones, great, you've got crunch. If it doesn't, you probably just ate part of someone's boot sole. On good days, and by good we mean less horrifying, the crew catches fish. These are grilled over an open fire, seasoned with soot and sarcasm. On bad days, you catch nothing, and the cook starts eyeing the rats, or the goats, or the contents of a mysterious barrel labelled, "Do not open, Jim." Speaking of rats, yes, you'll eat them. Not often, not proudly, but when the food runs low, and it always does, the line between vermin and entree gets blurry. You tell yourself it's like rabbit. It isn't, but lying to yourself is a core survival skill at sea. Spices, don't be ridiculous. The only seasoning you get is salt. Salt in your food, salt in your wounds, salt in your nightmares. Occasionally, someone hoards a stash of pepper or dried herbs from a port town. They become gods. Everyone sucks up to them until the stash runs out or gets stolen. Hygiene in the galley is theoretical. The cook has one knife. It cuts meat, bread, rope, toenails, same blade, same rag to wipe it. The pot gets cleaned maybe once a month, or when it catches fire. Spoiled meat isn't discarded, it's boiled longer. That's the strategy. Just cook the disease out. Dining etiquette, there isn't any. You eat with your hands, or your dagger. You slurp, gnaw, and occasionally fight over scraps. Meals are loud, chaotic, and frequently interrupted by threats. Someone always spills something. Someone else always makes eye contact while licking a bone. Meals are rationed. You don't get seconds. If you're late, you get nothing. If you complain, you're invited to have a chat with the cook. No one knows what happens during these chats. People return changed, quiet, suspiciously full. But here's the worst part. You get used to it. You stop noticing the texture. You stop asking what's in the stew. You start missing the flavourless biscuit blocks when they're gone. You'll dream of them at night, cradled in your hammock, whispering, "At least I knew what you were." So enjoy your meal, sailor. Bon appétit, and may the weevils be merciful tonight. Let's talk about cleanliness, or rather, the permanent and deafening absence of it. Because you, dear pirate, are filthy, not in the cute, rugged and weather-worn way, in the walking petri dish with legs way. You are at this point mostly skin, stink and regret. Bathing? That's not part of the schedule. There is no daily dip in a clear blue lagoon while singing sea shanties. There is no soap unless someone liberated a bar from a portside brothel, and even then, it's guarded like treasure. Showers, please. The only running water here is rain, and that's if Neptune's in a generous mood. Occasionally, if the sea is calm and the crew hasn't mutinied in the past 48 hours, you'll be allowed to jump overboard for a wash, which is just swimming, naked near sharks. You come out wet, a little cleaner, and slightly more paranoid than before. Someone always jokes about cutting the rope ladder. It's not always a joke, but for the most part, you just marinate. You sit in your own grease. Your clothes grow stiff. Your hair takes on the texture of coarse rope. Your skin develops new and interesting textures. Your smell becomes a weapon. You stop caring. Everyone smells. Some days it's the only thing you all have in common. Lice? Oh yes. Constant companions. They live in your hair, in your shirt, in your hammock. You will pick them off your skin like raisins from bad porridge. You'll give them names out of boredom and despair. Sometimes the crew shaves their heads to fight them. Sometimes they just burn their shirts and scream. There are no toilets. You already know about the plank. That single piece of wood jutting off the back of the ship where you squat and try not to think about how undignified this is. If the seas are rough, you'll miss. If someone's using it ahead of you, you wait, or don't. Nobody wins. Toilet paper? No. Rags, maybe. A scrap of sailcloth if you're lucky. Your hand if you're desperate. You rinse it in seawater and pretend you didn't just abandon all standards of civilization. Then you go back to eating with that same hand. Welcome to the circle of life, Pirate Edition. Your teeth? You still have some. For now. There's no toothbrush, no minty rinse, no floss. You might use a frayed stick. You might chew herbs. Mostly, you just let nature reclaim your molars. Gums swell. Teeth loosen. Eventually, they fall out, and you slurp your meals through your remaining dignity. Infections thrive here. Scratches become abscesses. Bug bites turn septic. You'll get boils. You'll get rashes. Someone will have trench foot, even though you're not in a trench. That's just what happens when your boots are always wet and your socks are theoretical. If you're wounded, the cleaning process involves salt water, a rag someone used to wipe stew off the deck, and a silent prayer to whichever sea god hasn't cursed you yet. Stitches are performed with sail needles. Antiseptic? Ah, your doctor is rum and indifference. Then there's the smell. Oh, the smell. It follows you, clings to you, becomes part of your identity. A mix of sweat, salt, mould, and dried fish. You become nose-blind to it, but make no mistake, you reek. Birds veer away. Port towns gag. Even the rats keep their distance on a bad day. Clothing is never washed. It's beaten against a rock or rinsed in seawater, which just adds crusty to filthy. Once your shirt can stand up by itself, it's time to burn it and steal someone else's. Most of your wardrobe has more holes than fabric anyway. Feet, a battlefield. Constantly wet. Constantly sore. Toenails blacken, peel and vanish. Blisters pop, then refill. You sleep with your boots off only to find something has moved in during the night. Fungal infections aren't a possibility. They're a guarantee. There is no hygiene. There is only survival. You don't clean. You rot slowly. Your body becomes a history book of every wound, bite, and festering rash you've acquired since boarding this floating disease barge. You are decomposing in real time. So yes, pirates may have feared cannonballs and hangings, but nothing terrified them quite like a mirror and a good long sniff. You thought the captain ran this ship? That's sweet. But no, your true commander is disease. It's with you always. In your water, in your wounds, in the wheezing cough of the man who sleeps 6 inches from your face. You don't sail the sea so much as drift from one microbial disaster to the next. Let's start with the classic, scurvy, caused by a lack of vitamin C. Sounds simple, right? Just eat an orange. Except you haven't seen a fruit in months. Not a citrus wedge, not a sprig of parsley. Your diet is pure salt, starch and hope. First your gums bleed, then your teeth loosen. Eventually, they fall out like sad little dominoes, and you're left trying to chew dried pork with your molars flapping like loose shutters in a gale. Your joints swell, your legs ache, your skin bruises if someone breathes on you too hard. You bleed from places you forgot had blood vessels, and still, the cook insists that the stew is nourishing. You'd protest, but your tongue has swollen to the size of a boot heel. Next up, dysentery. Ah yes, the great leveller. Rich, poor, old, young. Everyone gets to poop themselves to death on equal footing. Caused by drinking contaminated water, which, on this ship, is all water. You'll know it's hit when your stomach starts rumbling like cannon fire, and you sprint, or stagger, to the latrine plank, only to discover it's occupied for the next 20 horrifying minutes. Then there's fever. Any fever. Pick your poison. Typhus, yellow fever, malaria. They're all invited. Symptoms include sweating, chills, shaking, hallucinations, and the conviction that the ship's mast is whispering to you. And if it's not fever, it's probably plague. Because yes, even the Black Death has been known to catch a ride on a pirate ship. Nothing like a spontaneous body count to keep morale spicy. Skin infections are constant. Boils the size of chicken eggs. Rashes that spread like gossip. Wounds that never heal, just ooze with increasing enthusiasm. There's a man on your crew who has had the same sore on his leg since Martinique. He named it. It's doing better than he is. Lice and fleas don't just live on you. They thrive on you. They hold reunions. They take extended family vacations across your thighs. You scratch until you bleed, and then you scratch some more. The itching becomes part of you. At some point you stop noticing, which is arguably worse. You might notice tuberculosis. Someone is always coughing, deep, wet, lung-shaking coughs that echo through the lower decks like ominous drum beats. The kind of cough that comes with a bit of blood and a lot of denial. It's just the sea air, they say, while coughing their lung into a bucket. Then there's venereal disease, because every time you reach port, at least half the crew stumbles ashore in search of temporary affection and permanent consequences. Syphilis, gonorrhea, the mysterious French itch. You'll know it's caught on when men start limping and cursing their own anatomy between sobs. Treatment? There isn't any, not really. The ship has a surgeon, which is a generous title for a man with a rusty saw, and a deeply unhealthy fascination with leeches. If you're lucky, he pours rum on it. If you're unlucky, he starts humming while sawing. Sometimes diseases sweep through the ship so fast that they take out a quarter of the crew in a week. The bodies are dumped at sea, wrapped in a bit of sailcloth, mumbled over, and pitched into the deep. No funerals, no headstones, just a splash and the quiet acknowledgement that it's your bunk now. Contagion isn't avoided, it's expected. You share utensils, water, bedding, air. Someone sneezes, and 6 men get fevers. You develop a sixth sense for spotting illness. You start avoiding the man who's sweating through his shirt in winter. You give the wheezing guy a wide berth. Not because you're afraid, but because there's only so much dying you can handle before it interrupts your hammock schedule. Sometimes the sick are put aside, quarantined in the hold, wrapped in blankets, told to rest, which really means, please die quietly so we can finish lunch. And if they don't die fast enough, someone makes a decision, a quiet one, with a pillow or a length of rope. But the worst part, you get used to it. The smell of sickness, the groans, the way someone stops responding when you shake them awake. It stops shocking you. It just becomes background noise. Like the waves, like the rats. So yes, the sea might drown you, and cannonballs might splatter you. But if you really want to know what's going to end your pirate career, check your gums. So, you've been scrubbing decks, dodging rats, and losing teeth to scurvy, all the usual pirate hobbies. But today's different. Today, the lookout yells something incomprehensible from the crow's nest. The captain smiles like a man who just remembered where he left his rage, and the ship starts to turn. You're going into battle, not a heroic duel, not a cinematic ballet of blade and grace. No, this is chaos, screaming, smoke, fire, and the constant, unrelenting awareness that wood is splintering somewhere very close to your internal organs. First comes the prep. Everyone runs around pretending to know what they're doing. Cannons are rolled into place. Powder is measured. Pistols are loaded, some of them correctly. The deck is soaked with sand to catch the blood. Yes, they do that on purpose. It's called being practical. Your heart is racing. Your hands are shaking. You're handed a cutlass, dull, nicked, heavy. It smells like rust and previous owners. Someone ties a pistol to your waist. You ask how to use it. They laugh. Then they hand you a boarding axe and pat you on the back, like a man sending his goat into a thunderstorm. Then you see it, the other ship. It's coming fast. Cannon ports open. Flags are flying. They're yelling too. And just like that, the cannonballs start flying. Not politely. Not with warning. They explode into the side of your ship like thunder having a tantrum. Wood flies. You hear someone scream. You don't know if it's you. Splinters are deadly. You expected swords and bullets, not jagged chunks of oak flying into your thigh like angry darts. Men lose eyes, fingers, chunks of face. The ship moans louder than the crew. Smoke starts to pour across the deck. Your lungs fill with powder and panic. Then boarding. Grappling hooks thud onto the rails, ropes fly across. Men yell and swing from one deck to another, like angry, unshaven monkeys. You're shoved forward. Time to kill or be killed, and you're still not entirely sure which end of the axe is the business end. You leap, you land badly. Someone immediately tries to stab you. You flail with your sword. It clangs off armour, or maybe a barrel. You don't know. There's blood on your sleeve, and you don't know whose it is. You're shouting. Everyone's shouting. The air is so full of noise, it becomes a kind of silence. Combat is not clean. There are no rules. It's elbows, teeth, knees, axes, pistols, screaming, slipping on guts, and getting hit in the head with things that should not be airborne. You lose your hat. You lose your sword. You gain a knife from somewhere and just start jabbing in the general direction of not you. The smoke is blinding. Guns fire. Cannons boom. A man runs past you on fire. Someone gets shot and doesn't notice. Another man gets shot and collapses like a sack of onions. The deck is slick with blood and seawater. Your feet slide. You nearly fall. Someone grabs you, snarls, and then vanishes under a boot. You finally stab someone. It's not graceful. It's not brave. It's desperate, clumsy, and followed by retching. The man groans. Then you're shoved aside and someone else finishes the job with a pistol to the face. You're crying, or maybe sweating, or both. You're not sure anymore. There is no honour, no gallantry, just survival. The men who win are the ones who move fast, hit hard, and don't stop. You're covered in grime. Your ears are ringing. Someone's screaming in your face. You don't know if it's an order or a threat. You nod anyway. Eventually the tide turns. You're winning, allegedly. The enemy starts retreating. Some jump overboard, others surrender. You want to celebrate, but your arms are shaking, your legs are jelly, and your stomach is threatening to mutiny. The aftermath is worse. The groans of the dying, the stench of blood and burned powder, the realization that some of those bodies are people you recognized, people who snored next to you, who complained about stew with you, who once offered you a spoon with only minor threats attached. Victory doesn't feel like glory. It feels like exhaustion soaked in smoke and blood. You slump down next to a splintered barrel, and someone hands you a dented flask. You drink. It burns. It doesn't help. Nothing helps. And then the captain yells. Again. There's another ship on the horizon. You stand up on legs that no longer want to stand, pick up a weapon you barely remember dropping, and prepare to do it all over again. Welcome to pirate warfare. No medals, no honour, just teeth-gritting, blood-spitting survival. One horrifying moment at a time. So, you've survived battle. Congratulations. Statistically speaking, you shouldn't have, but you did. You're standing, or at least swaying, blood-soaked, bruised and full of questions. Chief among them, is that my blood? And should my arm be bending that way? Welcome to the next chapter of pirate misery. Injury. Because you don't just die outright. That would be too merciful. No, first you suffer. Then you really suffer. Then you consider chewing off your own leg and calling it self-care. First things first, there's no medical officer. There's a surgeon, sure, but that term is being used as loosely as the bandages he ties with one hand while swigging rum with the other. He's not trained. He's not clean. He once mistook gangrene for sunburn and shrugged it off. What does he have in his medical kit? A saw, a rusty knife, some thread, a needle that looks like it came from a sailmaker's box, a bottle of alcohol, for him, not you, and a strip of leather for you to bite while he removes body parts you were really hoping to keep. Let's talk amputation. You get shot in the arm, stabbed in the leg, or develop an infection that starts to smell like spoiled onions. That limb's got a date with destiny, and a saw. There's no anesthesia, no morphine, no chloroform. Just 3 other pirates holding you down, while the surgeon mutters something unhelpful, like, "This might sting." It doesn't sting. It burns, it rips. It drills pain into your skull, like a shipworm, into driftwood. You scream. You bite the leather. You cry. Or you pass out. Which is, honestly, the best case scenario. If you're lucky, you wake up without your leg. If you're unlucky, you don't wake up at all. Infection is inevitable. The tools weren't clean. The rag wasn't clean. The surgeon's hands weren't clean. There's probably a rat watching, horrified from the corner, and it's cleaner than the table you're lying on. The wound festers. You get a fever. You shake. You hallucinate. Sometimes the limb rots. Sometimes your insides do. What about broken bones? They're set manually. That is, someone grabs your arm, says, "Hold still," and then yanks until it makes a sound you will never forget. Splints are made from spare bits of wood. Bandages are made from rags. Pain relief is still rum. Always rum. There is no plan B. Even minor injuries, scratches, splinters, rope burns, can become death sentences. Why? Because you're never clean. The ship is never clean. The air is full of salt and misery, and your blood is basically an open buffet for every bacterium on board. There are no stitches unless your guts are falling out. And even then, they might just push things back in and tie a belt around your waist. If something's bleeding, you press a cloth on it and hope. If it keeps bleeding, you press harder. If it still bleeds, well, at least the sharks will be full. Burns, you fall into a hot galley fire or take a powder flash to the face. You get slapped with a handful of lard, maybe some ash, and a pat on the back. You'll toughen up. Never mind the blisters or the smell of cooking skin. You've got a job to do, crispy or not. Sometimes a crewmate offers advice, homemade remedies, chewing tobacco, piss-soaked rags, bloodletting. Hold this eel to your forehead. You try anything, everything, nothing works, and somehow it's still better than another visit to the ship's surgeon, who now refers to you as repeat business. You might survive, you might not. It's not based on how bad the wound is. It's based on luck. Sheer dumb luck. You can get stabbed in the gut and live, or you can trip on a rope, scrape your knee, and die of fever 3 days later. It's a medical lottery with no winners and no refunds. Mental trauma? That's cute. If you flinch at loud noises or cry at night, you're told to toughen up. If you keep crying, someone throws a blanket over your head and says it's time to man up or shut up. Therapy is punching something until the world stops spinning. If you do die, your body gets wrapped in a tarp and dumped overboard with minimal ceremony. Maybe someone says a few words. Maybe they just loot your pockets and push. The surgeon sighs and sharpens his saw for the next customer. So yes, pirate life is dangerous, but not because of battle, not because of storms. It's because once you get hurt, the best case scenario is you live worse. Treasure. The reason you signed up, or were clubbed into signing up in the first place. Visions of overflowing chests, glittering coins, goblets encrusted with jewels, and a monkey wearing a tiny crown. Spoiler, that's not real. None of it is real. The only thing buried out here is your sense of optimism. Let's start with the basics. Most pirates never saw treasure, real treasure. Not a rusted belt buckle or a dented silver spoon. Actual chests filled with doubloons? Rare. Very rare. Most of the ships you'll plunder are merchant sloops carrying sugar, textiles, salted fish, or barrels of molasses that leak and smell like old syrup and broken dreams. Sometimes you'll get lucky and snag a ship carrying spices or rum. Hooray! That's not treasure. That's inventory. And if you're picturing neat little piles of gold, you've clearly never helped load a cargo hold full of live chickens and crates of peppercorns that explode when dropped. When you do manage to take something shiny, it doesn't go to you. It goes to the captain first, always. Then the quartermaster. Then it gets divided based on the pirate equivalent of a spreadsheet designed by a drunk raccoon. Officers get more, the cook gets less. You get what's left after someone forgets how to count. And even then, if there's anything valuable, it gets melted down, pawned off, or traded for supplies at the next port. You'll never touch it, never smell it. It vanishes into the ether of pirate bookkeeping, which mostly involves someone muttering, "Trust me, mate," and writing numbers on a soggy scrap of parchment. Let's talk about buried treasure. You've heard the stories. X marks the spot. A hidden map, a palm tree and a shovel. All lies. Pirates didn't bury treasure. Why would they? They spent it as fast as they stole it. On rum, gambling, women, more rum, and poor decisions involving livestock. A buried chest is just money you can't drink. Maps? Rare. If they existed, they were badly drawn, and usually stained with something alarming. Most treasure maps were created decades after the fact by writers who thought piracy needed more cartographic mystery and fewer rotting teeth. And then there's the share system. Technically, pirate crews were democratic. Shares were allocated based on rank and role. But if the haul was terrible, and it usually was, your share might be 5 coins, a half-eaten orange, and a punch in the ribs. Not necessarily in that order. Some pirates became rich, a tiny, statistically irrelevant handful. They were either captains, lucky mutineers, or absolute sociopaths who outlived their rivals. The rest died poor, or spent their last coins on bad wine and worse tattoos in a port they never left alive. You'll loot people's clothes, their boots, sometimes their teeth. If someone's got gold fillings, out they come. It's not treasure, it's recycling. If you think piracy is glamorous, wait until you see a man pry out a molar with a fork and yell, "Profit!" Once in a while, you'll find jewellery, a locket, a ring, maybe a necklace. It's covered in blood, sticky with someone's final moments, and probably cursed. You clean it. You try to sell it. The fence lowballs you. You accept anyway, because you need money for bread and brandy, and you lost your last boot during a knife fight with a pig. There's no bank, no savings account. What you earn, you carry, until it's stolen. Because pirates steal from everyone, including each other. You fall asleep with a coin purse and wake up with a note that says, "Thanks, mate. You accuse someone. Hope you like fighting for the amusement of a bored crew." And the biggest lie of all, that treasure makes you free. It doesn't. Even if you strike it rich, somehow, miraculously, you can't spend that money safely. You're wanted, hunted. The moment you flash a gold doubloon, someone recognizes you, and suddenly you're dangling from a rope in a crowded port square, while children eat candied nuts and watch you twitch. So yes, treasure exists, technically, but for you, it's a rumour, a fantasy, a dangling carrot made of fool's gold and false promises. You'll fight for it, bleed for it, kill for it, and most likely, you'll never see more than a handful of tarnished coins and a chipped goblet shaped like a fish. Welcome to the pirate economy, where every man dreams of riches and every man dies broke. You might think pirates were anarchists, wild men of the sea with no rules, no masters, and no consequences. That's what the stories say, right? Freedom, rebellion, an ocean of opportunity. You poor, gullible land creature. Pirate ships had rules, harsh ones, written ones. They called them articles, and if you broke them, the punishment was swift, loud, and frequently involved rope, blood, and the public humiliation of screaming into the wind while your crewmates placed bets on how long you'd last. Let's begin with the basics. Don't steal from your crewmates. Yes, this is somehow different from stealing from strangers. Plunder from a merchant vessel? Fine. Borrow a biscuit from scraps without asking. Suddenly you're tied to the mast and learning what rope burn tastes like. Caught cheating at dice? That's a flogging. Fighting without cause? Flogging. Starting a mutiny without enough support? Definitely flogging. Talking back to the captain? If you're lucky, flogging. If you're not, it's keel hauling, which is exactly as fun as it sounds. Let's talk keel hauling. This is where you're tied to a rope, thrown overboard, and dragged beneath the ship's hull. Why? To teach you a lesson. What do you learn? That barnacles are sharp, very sharp. The underside of the ship is like a coral cheese grater, and your skin is the cheese. If you don't drown, you come out flayed, bleeding, and quietly reassessing your life choices. For less theatrical offences, there's marooning. It's exactly what it sounds like. You get dropped off on a deserted island with a pistol and one bullet for reflection. You can hunt, signal for help, or just go full existential crisis and eat coconuts until madness sets in. If someone remembers you later, it's probably just to tell your replacement what not to do. But the real crowd pleaser is the lash. Flogging was the go-to punishment for almost everything. Drunkenness, ironic, disobedience, or just bad vibes. The whip, usually a cat-o'-nine-tails, is a delightful device made of leather straps, sometimes knotted or tipped with bits of metal. You're stripped to the waist, tied down, and turned into a blood-spraying lesson for the rest of the crew. The number of lashes depends on the crime, and the mood of the man holding the whip. Some men pass out, some scream until they can't, some bite down on a rope and try to pretend they're somewhere else, somewhere with fewer splinters and more basic human rights. No trial, no appeal, no please explain your side of the story. The captain or quartermaster hears what happened, nods gravely, and says something like, "Right, 30 lashes and double-deck duty." And just like that, your back becomes a cautionary tale. And don't even think about insubordination, rolling your eyes, dangerous, calling the captain a rum-soaked idiot under your breath, fatal, questioning orders during combat. Well, that's the sort of thing that earns you a midnight swim with an anchor tied to your boots. Some captains were more lenient, most weren't. Power at sea does strange things to men. Add rum, fear, and a ship full of desperate criminals, and suddenly everyone's yelling, and someone's being nailed by the ear to the mast as a warning. Public punishment was the point. You weren't just hurt, you were displayed. Every man watching was meant to think, I'd better keep my mouth shut, while also secretly thinking, I hope I never get caught for my thing. And then there's the psychological stuff, assigning you to latrine duty for a month, making you sleep near the bilge, taking your rum ration away, having you scrub the deck with your shirt. None of it is physically painful, but it breaks something inside you, slowly, quietly. Occasionally, someone resists, fights back, tries to argue. They're usually beaten senseless or tossed overboard. The lesson is clear. This isn't freedom. It's just another hierarchy, one with salt in its wounds and no paperwork to slow it down. And if you think discipline makes things safer, it doesn't. It just makes everyone quieter, meaner, and more paranoid. Every man remembers the last punishment, and every man silently wonders when it will be his turn. So no, pirate life wasn't lawless. It was brutally orderly. A floating courtroom where the gavel is a whip and the jury is drunk. You've heard stories about pirate captains, charismatic rogues, devilishly handsome anti-heroes with quick wits and quicker swords. The kind of man who gives rousing speeches, wins every duel, and has a tragic backstory involving a cursed locket and a stormy night. Right, that's not your captain. Your captain is Captain Varnish, not his real name. Just what the crew calls him because of the way his eyes gleam when he's about to commit a felony. Or maybe because he once ate varnish during a famine and insisted it made him shine inside. The details vary. He wears a hat, a large feathered, comically excessive hat. Once fine, now weather-beaten and home to a family of mitids. He refuses to remove it, even in storms, even while vomiting over the railing. That hat, he says, is his authority. Everyone else says it's slowly absorbing his brain. This man rules with absolute power, unless the crew decides otherwise. Pirate ships were often semi-democratic, yes, but mutiny is messy, and most men are too tired to stage one unless the captain really pushes it. So for now, he stays in charge through a potent mix of volume, violence, and vintage intimidation. He is judge, jury, and occasional executioner. If you make a mistake, he doesn't yell. He leans in and whispers something like, "Would you prefer the lash or a swim with stones in your pockets?" And then he grins. Not because he's joking, but because you think he might be joking. He's clever, but unstable. One minute he's calmly explaining wind patterns. The next, he's howling at a pelican and accusing it of treason. The crew doesn't question it anymore. We all just silently agree that Captain Varnish is operating on a different wavelength. Possibly haunted. Definitely armed. He has rules, not consistent ones, not written down, but you're expected to know them. Like, never mention oranges, don't whistle on deck, never touch his boots, even if they're on fire. And for the love of Neptune, don't ask what's in the locked chest under his hammock. His quarters are cluttered with oddities. A cracked mirror, a taxidermy parrot missing one eye, a bundle of human hair in a velvet pouch, maps of places that don't exist. He sleeps with one eye open and one hand on a pistol. Sometimes he talks to himself. Sometimes he gets answers. Despite everything, he's weirdly competent. He can read the sky like a book. He knows every shoal and channel between here and Barbados. He navigates by stars and gut instinct. And somehow we never run aground. Which is probably why he's still in charge. No one else wants the job badly enough to risk a mutiny hangover. He drinks, not casually, not socially, professionally. Rum in the morning, grog at noon, captain's elixir, probably turpentine at midnight. He never seems drunk, just more himself. Slurred threats, philosophical monologues, interpretive screaming. Occasionally, he's charming. He'll pull out a fiddle and lead the crew in a song. He'll tell a joke so dark it makes the cook choke on his stew. He'll give you a look just once that says, "I see you. I remember when I was like you." And then he'll throw a chair overboard, for reasons no one will ever explain. You fear him, but you need him. The sea is cruel, and captains are armour. Without one, you're just floating meat with no direction. With him, you're part of something, even if that something is deeply unstable and smells like burnt rope and mouldy citrus. Every crew member has a captain story. The time he fought off a boarding party with a mop. The time he convinced a Spanish galleon to surrender, using only profanity and a dead shark. The time he held a funeral for a bottle of rum. No two stories match, none of them are comforting. When the fighting starts, he's the first in. Screaming, laughing, bleeding like it's a hobby. His coat billows dramatically, even in windless conditions. You suspect sorcery, or just very stiff fabric. Either way, it's effective. And when the storm comes, he's at the helm, coat soaked, hat still on, yelling at thunder like it owes him money. Somehow, impossibly, you feel safer with him screaming at the sky than you would with anyone else at the wheel. So yes, the captain is a tyrant, a lunatic, a dangerous, probably cursed man in a very large hat. But he's your lunatic. And out here, that counts for something. Life on a pirate ship is hard, but it's not without structure. And when structure breaks down, say someone drinks all the water, punches the cook, or accidentally lights the rum stash on fire, there's only one thing left to restore order: punishment. Creative, public, and loud enough to make everyone briefly regret their own existence. Let's begin with the lash. You've heard of it before, you've possibly felt it before, but here's the thing. Every lash feels personal. It's not a soft whip. It's a cat o' nine tails, a festive name for a nightmare device made of leather cords, sometimes tipped with bits of bone or metal, just to keep things interesting. If you're lucky, you pass out before lash 5. If you're unlucky, you remain conscious for all 20, or 30, or however many the captain feels you deserve, for snoring too close to his quarters, or breathing disrespectfully near his pet chicken. Then there's being tied to the mast. Is exactly what it sounds like. Arms behind your back, rope around your chest, left to stand there in sun, rain, wind, and shame, while every man aboard gets a good look at what "don't be this guy" looks like. You'll be mocked, you'll be hit with things, you'll learn humility, maybe. Extra duty is another favourite. You'll be ordered to clean the deck with a rag made of old socks and spite. You'll swab the latrine plank. You'll haul barrels back and forth for no reason other than to sweat out your insolence. You'll be told it's character building. It's not. It's backbreaking. If you've really messed up, stolen from a crewmate, disrespected the quartermaster, or started a fire as a joke, you might face ducking. That's where they tie you to a rope, lower you over the side, and dunk you into the ocean like a particularly stubborn biscuit. Sometimes once, sometimes 12 times. It depends on how entertaining your panic is. Then there's keel hauling. Yes, we mentioned it before. And yes, we're mentioning it again. Because nothing quite drives the lesson home like being dragged under a barnacle-encrusted hull while screaming bubbles into shark-infested waters. You emerge flayed, salt-soaked, and spiritually hollow, which honestly makes you fit in better. Food punishments are another tool. You want dinner? Too bad. You're on biscuit ration. Just biscuit. No pork, no stew. Just a handful of stone-hard despair and the ambient crunch of regret. If you complain, you get nothing at all. Complain again, you get to serve dinner instead, while everyone avoids eye contact. One classic method is the necklace. That's where they tie your offence around your neck, literally. Caught stealing a spoon, you wear it on a string. Caught with contraband, you wear that too. It's petty, it's theatrical, and it works because no one wants to walk around with a mouldy onion on their chest, while being called Sticky Tom. Shaving punishments are surprisingly common. If you insult an officer or embarrass the captain, your beard gets hacked off in patches, or your head gets shaved with a blunt blade, and no dignity. Hair is pride. Lose it, and you lose status. And also, insulation during those cold night shifts. Ever heard of the bilge penalty? It means you're assigned to the worst part of the ship, the bilge. the wet, dark, slimy underbelly, where all the wastewater, rot, and mystery liquids collect. You bail it out with a bucket while holding your breath and trying not to absorb trauma through your pores. Silencing is another tactic. Not gagging, more like a forced vow of silence. You mess up, you don't get to talk for 3 days, not to defend yourself, not to joke, not to scream. Break the silence, and you're back at the mast. It's amazing how fast men snap when their only outlet is staring at a wall and thinking about what they've done. For more serious infractions, a real mutinous behaviour, the crew votes, and the punishment is worse, marooning. A pistol, a single shot, and a beach with no exits. You can shoot game, you can shoot yourself. Either way, you're off the payroll. Of course, not all punishments are official. Sometimes you just find your hammock missing, your boots gone, your food oddly saltier than usual. Pirates are creative, pirates hold grudges. And pirates know how to teach lessons that don't involve rope or fire, just long, cold isolation and whispered rumours. But the cruelest punishment? Being ignored. You step out of line badly enough, and they don't whip you. They pretend you don't exist. No eye contact, no food, no speech. You become a ghost aboard your own ship, walking silently among men who look through you like fog. So no, pirate ships weren't lawless. They just enforced the law with barnacles, rope, and psychological warfare. And if you think that sounds harsh, you're not wrong. But it does keep the crew in line, mostly. Eventually, every pirate crew hits a point where someone looks around, sighs deeply, and says, "You know what? Maybe we don't have to be screamed at by a madman in a feathered hat while eating rat stew." This, dear listener, is called mutiny. It starts slowly. Quiet grumbles, long, tired stares. A few too many accidental elbow jabs in the captain's direction. Someone starts using the word alternative leadership. Someone else starts sharpening a knife a little too loudly. The ship's mood turns from miserable to miserable, but also calculating. Why mutiny? So many reasons. The captain's gotten too cruel. The food's gone rancid, again. The latest treasure haul was suspiciously light, and the quartermaster is wearing a new pair of boots, made from what might be human skin. Or maybe it's just been 3 months since anyone bathed, and your sense of teamwork has finally died. Sometimes the final straw is stupid. Maybe the captain punished someone for sneezing. Maybe he threw your only map overboard because he heard voices in the parchment. Maybe he renamed the ship the Screaming Lettuce and insisted you all refer to yourselves as vegetables. But whatever the spark, it eventually ignites, and you find yourself in a secret meeting behind some barrels, whispering with men who haven't agreed on anything except that they all hate this. There are 2 kinds of mutiny, the smart kind and the kind that ends with you hanging upside down by your ankles while the captain lectures your corpse. The smart kind involves planning, timing, and not trying it in the middle of a storm while half the crew is drunk and the other half is vomiting. Step 1. Gather allies, quietly, carefully. You need the cook, the gunner, the guy with the keys to the weapons chest, and absolutely do not tell the ship's parrot. That thing's a snitch. Step 2. Wait for the moment. Maybe it's when the captain's passed out in his cabin. Maybe it's during battle, when chaos already reigns. Maybe it's when he climbs the rigging to yell at clouds, and nobody's really watching. Timing is everything, especially when lives and limbs are on the line. The actual mutiny, loud, fast, brutal. You rush the captain, you subdue his loyalists. There's yelling, punching, the occasional pistol misfire. Someone accidentally stabs a barrel, someone else accidentally stabs themselves. But if you win, if you pull it off, suddenly the ship is yours. And now comes the fun part. What do you do with the captain? Some crews maroon him, others just kill him and move on. Sometimes, if he was merely slightly insane, you drop him at the nearest port and sail off before he regains his sense of vengeance. If he was deeply insane, you set fire to his hat first just to be safe. After the mutiny, there's a honeymoon period. Spirits are high, democracy rules, meals are shared, no one screams when someone sneezes. For 3 glorious days, everything feels almost civilized. Then someone disagrees with the new leadership. Someone doesn't pull their weight, the rum runs low, and you start to hear those whispers again. Because here's the thing, once mutiny becomes an option, it never really goes away. It's always lingering in the background. Every captain knows it. Every crew member thinks about it. Every decision made after the first mutiny is filtered through the memory of how easy it was to throw someone overboard and call it progress. You've replaced one tyrant with a committee of smaller tyrants. Everyone wants to be in charge. No one wants to do the boring stuff, like keeping the sails intact or not sailing directly into reefs. The same resentment starts to build, the same bitterness, and soon enough, the knives are out again. Mutiny isn't freedom, it's just reorganization by bloodshed. But for a brief, shining moment, it feels like justice, until it's your turn to wear the hat. After weeks at sea, soaked, blistered, lice-ridden, and bleeding from somewhere, you finally see land. A port civilization. Buildings that don't creak. Food that didn't come from a barrel. Dirt that doesn't move beneath you. You're ecstatic. That's your first mistake. Pirates don't exactly receive warm welcomes. Most ports hate you. Some tolerate you. A rare few actively cater to you. But those tend to be lawless dens of sin, where you can trade a rusty button for a drink and get stabbed for making eye contact with someone's goat. Your ship limps into harbour like a dying animal, and you spill onto the dock with the rest of the crew. Eyes squinting, legs wobbling, faces crusted with salt and secrets. You stink. Everyone notices. People cross the street. Rats avoid you. The first stop, the tavern, always. You need rum, and you need it now. You find the nearest dive with a roof and a vague smell of fermented wood. Shove your way through the door and begin the time-honoured pirate tradition of drinking until your last coherent memory involves a broken fiddle and someone shouting, "Marry me or fight me." Taverns are where pirates celebrate and self-destruct. You drink, you gamble, you insult someone's hat and find yourself dodging a stool. Some ports have rules, others don't. Either way, the tavern ends with someone bleeding and someone else dancing on a table with a bottle in each hand and no trousers. You might try to buy things, clothing, weapons, provisions. Your boots have holes, your shirt has fleas. You want to trade your hard-earned silver for something soft, dry and not alive. But inflation hits hard in pirate ports. One decent coat costs half your cut, and that's assuming you weren't paid in counterfeit coins or cursed jewellery. Then there's romance, or what passes for it. Brothels exist. Most are disease-forward, others are simply scams. You hand over coin and get 5 minutes in a room with a bucket and a curtain. Fall in love if you must, but don't expect it to last past sunrise, especially if your name is already written on the "Do Not Admit" wall. If you're smart, you visit the fence, the person who can sell your loot without asking too many questions. Problem is, every pirate visits the fence, and they all want top price, and none of them trust each other. You leave with half what you hoped for, a suspiciously light bag of coin, and the realization that your stolen ruby is probably glass. Trouble finds you quickly. Pirates are not known for subtlety. Someone recognizes your ship. Someone's brother was on the last one you raided. Someone else just doesn't like your face. You spend a lot of your shore leave running, hiding, or punching someone into a barrel and sprinting for the docks. In more lawful ports, authorities patrol the streets. You spot redcoats or constables and immediately pretend you're a travelling musician or lost fishmonger. They rarely believe you. Some demand bribes, others just draw swords and ask if you'd prefer jail or public hanging. It's a real choose-your-own-misery adventure. You might visit the market, buy a mango, a sweet roll, a chunk of dried meat that doesn't smell like feet. It's heaven. It's also a trap. One wrong bump and your coin purse is gone. Or someone accuses you of theft and suddenly you're holding a coconut like it's contraband and everyone's yelling. Some pirates go missing in port. They drink too much, get robbed. Join another crew, or just wander off into the jungle after claiming they saw a vision in the banana trees. You'll hear stories. You'll assume they died. You'll probably be right. There's always someone selling magical protection, a charm, a feather, a vial of murky liquid that keeps away sharks and curses. You buy it, you wear it. You still get bit by a crab, robbed by a child, and punched by a nun. But you feel safer, and that's what counts. And when your coin is gone, your boots are worse, and your headache is louder than your regrets. It's time to stumble back to the ship. Hungover, injured, emotionally hollow, but still technically alive. Ports of call offer no rest, only new flavours of chaos. You don't come ashore to relax. You come ashore to remember why you left land in the first place. And next time, you'll probably get stabbed over something even dumber, like a banana. So, somehow, against every odd, every cannonball, every tropical disease and every questionable stew, you've survived. You've grown old at sea. Your bones creak louder than the ship's hull. Your teeth are mostly gone. Your back is a question mark. And you're still breathing. Barely. Congratulations, it's time to retire. Which sounds nice, right? A peaceful life on land, a small cottage, a warm fire, maybe a dog, maybe two, perhaps a hammock that doesn't threaten to kill you in your sleep. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, because pirate retirement is not that. First, let's talk about money. You probably don't have any. Whatever treasure you managed to steal, you spent long ago on rum, dice, or someone named Ruby, who almost certainly wasn't. You might have a pouch of coins stashed in your boot, but when you open it, you find mould, 2 bent buttons, and a Spanish doubloon that's actually chocolate. There's no pension, no pirate union, no savings plan, no trust fund, no generous letter from HR thanking you for your 30 years of stabbing. You have what you carried. And what you carried was mostly trauma and a suspicious rash. Some pirates settle down in quiet towns under fake names. They pretend to be fishermen or merchants. They grow beards, speak softly, and try not to flinch every time someone drops a spoon. You ask about their past and they change the subject. You ask again, and they disappear into the woods. Others return to the pirate-friendly islands, lawless little patches of land where nobody asks questions and everyone smells like dried rum and unresolved guilt. You can live there if you're lucky. If you're unlucky, someone recognizes you. Someone who remembers that time you double-crossed their cousin over a barrel of sugar and a goat. A few dream bigger, buying land, starting farms, opening taverns. These dreams last until the first bad harvest, the first tax collector, or the realization that running a tavern means dealing with drunk people, something you swore you'd never do again after that one night in Tortuga involving 6 mugs, 1 duel, and a live ferret. Some try to write their memoirs. Most can't read, let alone write, so they dictate their life story to someone with a quill, and it turns into a confusing, blood-soaked mess of half-true tales and deeply incriminating details. It's published under a pseudonym. It sells poorly, but a few readers start to wonder, was that you? But most pirates don't make it this far. You're the exception, the lucky one, which is unsettling because your body feels like it's held together by barnacles and superstition. You wake up to phantom sword fights in your dreams. You sneeze and throw out your shoulder. You're too tired to be feared and too haunted to be happy. Friends, gone, buried, lost, or worse, settled. With families, tiny houses, and suspiciously normal lives. You visit them once and their children stare at you like you crawled out of the sea. You try to tell a story. They ask why there's a knife in your boot. You'll always be looking over your shoulder. Bounties don't expire, especially if you are good at piracy. Some young bounty hunter might knock on your door one day, bright-eyed and full of foolish purpose. He calls you sir. You pretend to be deaf. He calls you captain. You sigh and reach for your rusty pistol. Some pirates die peacefully, in their beds, surrounded by cats, with a bottle of something strong, and the sea visible from their window. Their last words are usually a joke, or a curse, or something poetic about tides. Most die on a cot in a back alley, whispering to ghosts. The truth is, pirate retirement is mostly waiting. Waiting for death. Waiting for revenge. Waiting for the sea to call you back. Because the sea never really lets go. It's still in your blood. In your bones. In your cough. You listen for gulls and ship bells even when you're 100 miles inland. And sometimes, just sometimes, you catch yourself walking toward the docks. Limping, muttering, coat flapping. Looking for a ship. A crew. A second chance. But the ocean doesn't want you now. It's already replaced you. You're old, broken, forgotten. But you made it. Which in this profession is about as close to glory as you'll ever get. So, you've imagined the hat, the coat, the swagger. You've pictured yourself standing on the deck, one boot propped against the railing, staring into the sunset like you own the ocean. Maybe you even whispered "ah" to yourself once or twice, just to feel something. Now you know better. You wouldn't last a day, not because you're soft, not because you can't throw a punch or hold your breath or tolerate a little blood, but because this life, the real pirate life, is designed to grind people down, to salt-cured, half-mad husks who cough up seawater and smile while doing it. You'd board the ship and immediately gag from the smell. Within an hour, you'd be seasick, bruised, and deeply unsure of who just called you meat boy. By nightfall, your hammock would collapse. You'd be ankle-deep in bilge, and someone would have threatened you with a spoon. You'd get your first ration, biscuit and salt pork, and realise your teeth weren't ready. You'd get your first injury and meet the ship's surgeon, who greets you with a rusty saw and an expression that says, "You'll probably die, but let's make it a surprise." You'd think, at least there's treasure. Then you'd see that the loot is 4 bolts of damp linen and a barrel of spoiled lard. You'd consider mutiny, only to discover it's already happened twice this month, and nobody remembers who's captain anymore. The ship's just drifting on habit and body odour. By the time battle came, you'd still be holding the pistol someone gave you with the trigger on backwards. You'd try to stab someone and drop your sword. You'd scream. They'd scream. A cannonball would hit somewhere nearby and you'd end up half deaf and fully reconsidering your life choices. You'd think about jumping overboard, but even the ocean is dangerous, full of sharks, jellyfish, and judgment. So you'd sit down on a damp crate, surrounded by men who haven't blinked in days, and try not to cry in front of the one-eyed rat that's clearly sizing you up. Because pirate life isn't freedom. It's hunger, disease, pain, fear, and above all, filth. So much filth. Inside your boots, in your mouth, in your dreams. You don't get used to it. You just stop noticing. Which, in its own horrible way, is worse. So no, you wouldn't last. Not a day. Not an hour. Not past the moment someone hands you a mop and points at a puddle that's definitely not seawater. And that's okay. Because tonight, you're not on a ship. You're not standing on splintered deckboards under a cloud of lice and rum breath. You're in bed, safe, clean, horizontal, with a roof, with soap. With the confidence that no one will threaten you with keel hauling if you sneeze too loudly. So close your eyes, let your muscles relax, breathe deep. You're not a pirate, and thank the stars for that. So, you're planning to retire, are you? That's cute, because almost no pirates retire. Not in the way people retire from normal jobs, with pensions, parting cake, and a farewell card signed by people pretending to like you. No, pirates retire by dying violently, disappearing mysteriously, or being hanged in front of a crowd that's mostly there for the snacks. Still, let's explore this fantasy together. Suppose you're the rare breed of pirate who doesn't die of dysentery, sword wounds, shark teeth, or a mutiny-related misunderstanding. Let's say you've survived storms, sieges, disease, poor decisions, and Captain Varnish's experimental stew. What does retirement look like? Well, first, you have no money. Any gold you ever got was spent instantly on rum, boots, women, dice, more rum, and that one guy who said he could sell you a pet monkey. Your nest egg is a damp pouch containing 3 buttons, a chipped tooth, and a coin that might actually be a washer. You don't have property. You don't own a cottage by the sea. You don't have land waiting for you in some peaceful village. What you have is a back permanently hunched from hauling ropes and a knee that whistles before it rains. Maybe you try to settle down. Maybe you limp into a quiet port under a fake name, like Mr. Seaworth, and pretend to be a fisherman. You tell the local children that the huge scar across your chest came from a farming accident. They believe you until you scream in your sleep and call the dog First Mate Harold. Some pirates do open taverns, briefly, until someone recognises them, or they get bored and start stabbing the furniture out of habit. Others become beggars, wandering dockside towns and muttering about cursed treasure, and how the parrot knew too much. If you're lucky, truly, cosmically lucky, you find a quiet stretch of coast and just exist. You spend your final years yelling at waves, drinking rainwater, and teaching seagulls how to judge people. Your beard grows impressive. Your fingernails do not. You have no family, no inheritance. Your legacy is a rumour. A smear in a poorly written broadsheet that says, "Local pirate believed dead again." And that's it. No statue, no song. Just a vague warning not to drink with anyone missing more than 2 fingers. And yet, somehow, you've done what most pirates never do. You aged. You weren't stabbed over cards. You weren't dragged under a hull. You didn't vanish into the fog during a storm after declaring yourself king of the ocean in your underpants. You endured. You're alone. You're broke. You creak when you sit. But you're alive, which in this line of work is the closest thing to retirement anyone ever gets. So dream big, sailor. Just don't expect a pension or teeth. You've spent your life robbing ships, drinking yourself halfway into the grave, and dodging swords, bullets, and bowel failure. But now the sea has caught up with you. Not in a storm, not in battle, not in a blaze of glory. No, you got captured. Maybe your ship was too slow. Maybe someone ratted you out. Maybe you got too drunk in a port town and tried to pay for ale with a seashell while screaming, "Do you know who I am?" Spoiler, they did. And now you're in a cell that smells like wet rope, stale breath, and last week's execution. You're not alone. There are other pirates here, Hunan, some sobbing, some sleeping, some carving tiny boats out of crusty bread. No one makes eye contact, because everyone knows what's coming. And there's no secret map to save you now. The trial is swift, if you can call it a trial. You're paraded into a courtroom filled with powdered wigs and angry merchants. They read a list of your crimes, longer than the Bible, delivered like a grocery list. Murder, theft, illegal parroting, impersonating a naval officer, loitering with violent intent. You try to speak. Maybe crack a joke, maybe shout your innocence, maybe recite a sea shanty out of sheer panic. It doesn't matter. The judge isn't impressed. You could have Shakespeare's ghost as your lawyer, and it still wouldn't matter. You are a pirate, and pirates hang. If you're lucky, they hang you quickly. A short drop, a snapped neck, a few kicks, a gasp and darkness. If you're unlucky, and let's be honest, you are, it's a long drop and a slow strangle, with the crowd jeering and someone selling roasted nuts nearby. And if you're really unlucky, they make an example out of you, drawn and quartered, or hanged, cut down still twitching, then disemboweled for public enjoyment. Nothing says justice like a child holding his dad's hand while watching a man's intestines meet daylight. Your body is not your own. It might be left hanging in a gibbet, a metal cage dangling from the docks to warn other would-be pirates. You'll rot in the breeze, swinging slightly, birds pecking at your face while people walk past and say, "Good riddance." If you're famous enough, They might spell your name right in the court records. Maybe. Don't get your hopes up. Most pirates go down in history as some guy, or that one with the weird eye. No statues, no poems, just a forgotten skull tossed in a ditch behind the courthouse. And here's the worst part. You knew this was coming. Every pirate does. From the first time you set foot on a stolen ship, you knew there were only two exits. Death at sea or the gallows. You just hoped you'd get the sea. Something quiet. Something quick. Not a wooden platform, and a bored hangman eating salted peanuts. The crowd isn't mourning you. They're not mourning anyone. They're cheering, laughing, taking bets on how long you'll kick. Some of them were robbed by pirates. Some just need a distraction. Some just want to see someone hang who isn't them. You try to be brave, to say something memorable. Tell the sea I'll return, or I regret nothing. But what comes out is mostly coughing, and a final shaky curse aimed at the man who sold you out for a bag of sugar and a clean pair of socks. The trapdoor opens. Your story ends the way most do. Not with treasure, not with a song, but with a rope, a snap, and a brief silence before someone in the crowd mutters, "Well, he lasted longer than the last one." And that, not gold, not glory, is the real retirement plan of a pirate. Let's take a moment to reflect. You've survived disease, injury, hunger, mutiny, flogging, and the deeply traumatic experience of watching someone eat hardtack like it was normal food. And yet, there's still one final cruelty to address. You were lied to. Everything you thought you knew about pirates, everything pop culture fed you, is a polished, sanitized fantasy designed to sell Halloween costumes and movie tickets. You imagined freedom, romance, high seas adventure. In reality, you got tetanus. Let's start with the big one, buried treasure. The dream of all dreams, an X on a weathered map, a chest full of gold, a palm tree, a shovel, maybe a witty skeleton nearby. Total fiction. Pirates didn't bury treasure. They spent it instantly. On rum, dice, bad decisions, and worse hygiene. Gold didn't go underground. It went straight to you into the tavern floorboards. Noble causes, please. Pirates weren't rebels against injustice. They weren't sea-born Robin Hoods. They were thieves, killers, deserters, drunkards, and opportunists. Some were escaped slaves. Some were cast-out sailors. Many just wanted to get paid without ever scrubbing another naval deck again. There was no grand ideal. Just desperation, with a cutlass. And then there's the charismatic rogue myth, the Jack Sparrow archetype. Clever, charming, slightly drunk in an endearing way. No, real pirates were drunk in a face-down-in-the-bilge way. Most couldn't read, bathe, or hold a coherent sentence. If someone wore eyeliner, it was because they'd been punched in both eyes. You probably pictured dramatic sea battles, elegant manoeuvres, sword fights that last 7 minutes and end with a witty quip. In truth, fights were short, brutal, and deeply unpleasant. There was slipping, screaming, biting, accidental shootings, and at least one guy who tried to kill someone with a chair leg. The democracy myth gets tossed around too. Pirates voted! Yes. And then they stabbed each other over the results. Leadership changed often, usually by force. Power went to whoever shouted loudest and bled least. Pirate freedom was just lawlessness, wearing a borrowed hat. Pirate ships were not glamorous. They were floating nightmares. Cramped, rotting, damp, and full of lice. The food was horrifying. The smell was worse. The crew hated each other by week 2. You didn't live on a ship. You survived on it. Until the scurvy took your gums or the surgeon took your leg. And those famous pirates, Blackbeard, Calico Jack, Anne Bonny, half of what's written about them was made up. By pamphleteers, court historians, and men with nothing better to do than exaggerate. For every real pirate with a legacy, there were 1,000 who died in silence, thrown overboard without a name. You might imagine a code of honour. Pirates protecting each other. Rules of engagement. No, pirates stole from each other constantly. They lied. They abandoned their wounded. brotherhood lasted until the rum ran out, or someone found a shinier knife. Even the fashion is a myth. No perfectly tied bandanas, no pristine leather coats, just sweat-stained shirts, filthy breeches, and whatever you looted from the last person who screamed. If you wore a hat, it was probably mouldy. If it had a feather, it was because a bird died in it. You probably believed in romance. Sail into port, fall in love with a barmaid, leave a legend. The truth, you stumbled ashore drunk, contracted something unmentionable, and were back on the ship before you remembered her name, if you even asked. Maps, parrots, eye patches, and catchphrases, all inventions. Fun ones, sure, but not real. The only phrase you said often was, "Where's my cup?" followed by, "Don't stab me." And what about freedom? That great pirate promise. The open sea, answerable to no one. In reality, you answered to your captain, or your quartermaster, or the noose waiting in the next port. Freedom, in pirate terms, meant dying slightly more creatively than the average sailor. So yes, you were lied to, not just a little, completely, utterly, and thoroughly. And now as you lie safe in your bed, perhaps drifting off beneath clean sheets and the soft hum of electricity, you can sleep well knowing one final truth. Being a pirate wasn't romantic. It was just survival, dressed up in other people's clothes. And there you have it. You've made it through the storm. Not the literal one, thankfully, but the long, slow, splinter-filled collapse of your pirate fantasies. You've felt the deck lurch, smelled the sweat-soaked wool, tasted the biscuit filled with bugs, and now you're still here, in bed upright, unstabbed. So take a breath. Look around. You're not on a leaking ship in the middle of the Caribbean. You're in a room. A real room with a door and insulation. You probably haven't seen a rat in days. You're already winning. You don't have lice, hopefully. You're not missing a limb. No one has threatened to flog you for sneezing. You didn't get forced to climb a mast in a lightning storm. You've had clean water today. You've had food that wasn't grey. You have soap. Let's not take that for granted. You have soap. Not animal fat and sand in a sack. Real soap. Maybe it even smells like lavender or oat milk, or something else no pirate could pronounce. You have teeth, or most of them. And if one falls out, you don't rinse your mouth with rum and scream into the sky. You call a dentist, who has tools that aren't rusty, and doesn't charge you a chicken and a handful of stolen buttons. You have plumbing. Indoor plumbing. You flush, and the horror disappears. You don't walk to the end of a plank with your backside hanging over the ocean, and the fear of slipping into shark-infested waters mid-bowel movement. What a luxury. You have a ceiling. No rain dripping on your forehead. No snoring crewmate 18 inches from your ear. No mystery moisture. Just quiet. Dry, civilized, clean quiet. You didn't sign a blood oath. You weren't flogged for looking at someone's boots. You weren't abandoned on an island with a pistol and your own guilt. You're just here, on a mattress, probably with a pillow that doesn't contain straw, mould, or old lice. You are not a pirate, and thank everything holy for that. So close your eyes now, landlubber. Let the horrors of history fade into the distance, like a cursed ship disappearing into the fog. You've learned something tonight, not just about pirates, but about the true value of toothpaste. Sleep tight, you've earned it. And if you dream of the sea, just remember to bring soap.